Labour's former Business Secretary, Chuka Umunna. Very good morning to you. Nice to see you.
Good to be here.
Comes to something, doesn't it, when the person sitting on our sofa to defend the Prime Minister's great, fantastic deal is someone from the Labour Party, and the only paper which is supportive is the Mirror. I mean, what's he actually managed to achieve here?
Well, you're right. Look, I don't hold any flame for the Prime Minister. But look, the people who he's trying to convince made their minds up about this before the renegotiation even started. They always wanted us to leave the European Union. But I think what the Prime Minister's come back with are substantial reforms. I'm not saying they're earth-shattering, but I think they're substantial reforms which will make a difference.
But they're not even earth-tickling, are they, Chuck? Let's be honest with you.
Well, I'm not...
Which part of all this do you think is even vaguely approaching earth-shattering? I mean, the real problem, it seems to me, is all Cameron's done here, our beloved Prime Minister, is feed the fire of the Eurosceptics by actually coming back with a pretty mediocre deal and trying to claim it's, you know, it's a deal of our lifetime.
Well, look, I think there are a generation who voted in 1975 for us to remain a member of the European Union who thought, well, look, we voted to join an economic unit. We didn't want to be part of a political project, so to speak, which is why it's good that he has got an opt-out from this notion of us being part of an ever closer union. Also, let's be clear, we're not talking about whether the UK goes into or out of the euro here. And unfortunately, polls show that sometimes people think that. We're talking about whether we remain a member of the European Union. But to the extent there's any suggestion of us joining the euro or the euro being the actual currency of the European Union, this is the first time in law that it will be recognised that the euro is not the currency, so to speak, for every single member state of the EU. But what this is really about, you know, it's far bigger than these four things that he's renegotiating. I think it's about whether you have a big view of our country, what it's achieved historically and what it can achieve in the future, whether you have a small view. And I don't buy this narrative that says every time a British Prime Minister of any political persuasion wants to achieve something in Europe, we get trampled over by our European partners. Because the fact is, in history, usually the UK Prime Minister has managed to marshal a majority of EU opinion behind the UK position. And we can do that going forward into the future and get more benefits than we get already from the European Union, in my view.
You said that he wasn't going to persuade the people who wanted to opt out of the EU, and they'll still vote that way. But, for instance, on something like child benefit, there might be lots of people who think, well, broadly, I think the EU is a good idea, but I'm not quite sure how people who come over here to work are allowed to claim child benefit and send it back to their home countries. Now, he said, I'll stop that happening.
Yeah.
And there might have been a lot of people who think, brilliant, well done for doing that, and now we'll vote to stay in for all the good stuff. But he hasn't even managed to change that significantly.
Well, obviously the most, and I'm not going to duck this, that the most contentious issue in some respects is the way free movement in the European Union interplays with our benefit system. And there's obviously still more detail to be hashed out in respect of child benefit, but also the extent to which people can claim in-work benefits like tax credit. But let's not forget...
Because for a lot of people, that's one of the critical issues, isn't it?
I'm not going to deny that. And I want us to have a system, never mind in respect of EU immigrants, but in the UK, where you pay in, you contribute in before you take out. And I'm not going to deny that this is an issue. It'd be a complete cop-out. But let's not forget, there are 2 million Brits living in the European Union who benefit from the different social security systems they have in other countries. And also, in respect of child benefits, what they're trying to put in place, as I understand it, is a mechanism so that you can't get more in child benefit than you would be able to get in your home country.
But I'm not
going to deny that's an issue. But on the other side of the ledger, you've got 3 million jobs linked to the EU, and also potentially another 800,000 jobs.
Stop your number 10 Downing Street press release. Let me just...
I don't read from number 10 Downing Street press releases.
You're supposed to be the opposition.
That's right.
Here's my issue about all this. It seems to me like we're going after the wrong group of migrants. A lot of the people that will be directly affected by this might be legitimately highly skilled economic migrants from Poland, from Hungary, where already there's a big backlash to what we're doing. Whereas, at the same time, there's this swathe of millions of people who are not economic migrants, but are desperate asylum seekers, refugees, and so on, coming around Europe, many of whom want to come to this country, and yet this issue is not being directly tackled with what is happening in this supposed great deal.
Well, free movement doesn't cover asylum seekers, and look, that is a cross-border issue, and I don't see any way that we can tackle that other than on a cross-border basis with our other European partners. And you're right, the European Union should be doing a better job. And look, let me just say on this issue of opposition, because like I said, I don't carry a flame for David Cameron in any way, shape or form. But
sounds
for
like
me,
it's a huge furnace today, Chuck.
Well, look, my view is I actually think the British public are fed up with us opposing each other for the sake of it. I think they're fed up with the ultra-tribal, party political nature of debate here. And there's no point me denying that I disagree with, saying that I disagree with Conservatives about us staying in the European Union. I think on both sides of the argument, and this is something I think people are welcome in this debate, it's good to see people from different parties, for once, putting all the party political rubbish to one side
last question.
and campaigning together for something in the national interest.